go ahead and introduce our guests, so go ahead, and speakers, so go ahead and continue to eat. Today we have Mr. Don Monastir, who is the CEO and President of General Informatics, where he leads the company's strategic vision, driving both organic growth and value-adding acquisitions. Under his leadership, General Informatics has expanded from Louisiana-based IT firm to a 200-plus employee company serving the Southeast and parts of the West. In addition, we have our hometown boy, if I may say that, Mr. Connor LeBlanc, who is the Senior Business Development of Compliance Manager at Baton Rouge-based General Informatics. For the past 4 years, he's served as the interpreter between GI's engineers and South Louisiana business owners, turning tech jargon into practical profit-saving and cybersecurity and AI solutions. Hopefully they'll be able to teach us a little bit about their jargon. I don't think any of us know too much about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off just by saying how cool this is for me. To be from here, to know most of y'all, this is a pretty unique opportunity. Whenever I graduated from law school back in 2020, it was right in the heart of COVID, during all the lockdowns. There weren't many law firms hiring, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. A lot of pressure from my family to figure it out, and started a startup, did that for a little bit, and then I went to basically an underground networking event whenever you weren't supposed to be having networking events during COVID, and I met Don, and we had a conversation. One thing led to another, and he basically offered me a job, and that has grown into having an opportunity to service the South Louisiana businesses that I care most about. I realized early on that I'd be able to take these skills and the knowledge I'm gaining in servicing these companies across South Louisiana and apply them to my hometown. I genuinely feel somewhat mission-driven in what I do, because I get to work with businesses like y'all's, and to sort of help educate and evangelize and let everyone know what technology is out there, things like AI, things like cybersecurity, cloud, all these different business technologies, and how we can sort of bring Morgan City's businesses into the future. That is what I aim to do. That is what I do every day at work. And Don has been a huge part of helping me learn how these different technologies work. And so that's sort of my goal, in the conversations that I have every day, is to help educate and help, provide services to businesses like y'all's that, that'll hopefully keep us competitive and allow us to, not fall behind as the rest of the world moves forward into a more, technologically enabled time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don. He's taught me everything I know, and hopefully he can teach us something today.
Thank you. Everything? I taught you everything?
Jay LeBlanc has also taught me quite a bit, and so has Greg Hamer. So.
Guys, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys about two topics I'm sure you've never heard of, right? You can't turn on the TV, you can't open a magazine, if those still exist, and not hear something about cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And today I'm going to try to give you just some base knowledge on, what artificial intelligence really is, what it encompasses. And I am going to break my own presentation rule, and that is I'm going to do something that I haven't tested quite yet, and see how disastrous it might go by the end of it all. But I'm doing it because I want you guys to kind of see where artificial intelligence is going and where it truly is today. So if you think about artificial intelligence, that's just really a topic that includes a lot of different types of machine learning and basically the advent of neural networks. So how many of you guys use ChatGPT? Okay, so about, let's call it 30% of you guys have used ChatGPT before. Guys, I've been working with artificial intelligence for about 10 years. I started in technology back in 1990, And what we started doing 10 years ago was creating these neural networks to actually look at video and be able to make a decision based on the information that was being ingested pixel by pixel. And so even then, when I was doing that, I didn't really recognize basically what was going to happen with artificial intelligence until the same day that many of you guys logged in, got onto ChatGPT, asked it a question, and was completely blown away at how good it handled your question and predicted, because that's basically what these intelligence engines are. They're predicting what it is that you want to hear based on that response. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, we're going to have to be involved in this, at least from a technology perspective, because generally speaking, if you do something on a computer, if you're an IT guy, they think you must be the guy I'm supposed to ask, right? But this has gotten to be so much more advanced, and the transformation that has happened over the last 2.5 years is faster than any other technology that I have witnessed since 1989, which is when I got into the business. And guys, there's a lot that has transpired over those years. I mean, the advent of the internet was one of those big watershed moments, and I would tell you that this is bigger than that. And I'll kind of show you a little bit about that in just a second. So many of you guys who have used ChatGPT before, you basically can ask it a question, you can give it information and ask it to rewrite that information in a much more professional way. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. But as the technology has advanced, what we're getting into is more what they call agentic AI. And all that really means is the artificial intelligence is creating basically agency for you. And what that means is that it's going to go do something for you on your behalf. And so how many of you guys have heard of Google's deep research? Okay, a couple of folks. How many of you used it? Anybody use it? Pretty fantastic stuff. So I'm going to try to show you a little bit about what companies are using deep research for and this concept of agentic AI. And what we're going to do is hopefully use something that you guys can take with you and think about and be interested in. And basically, this is a prompt that I've written specifically to do a deep research study on. And guys, if we were going to do a deep research study on a topic like this, and I'm not going to read the whole topic to you, but the ultimate goal is to provide a scalable framework for using AI to create a more diversified, resilient, and future-ready local economy in Morgan City, one that honors its industrial roots while embracing the digital frontier. So basically, I want this agent to go out and do research on my behalf and find out what we can, as business owners, as business leaders in Morgan City, do to remain diversified and utilize artificial intelligence and utilize these new tools so that we can continue to be more competitive and more efficient. Is that a good deal? Can we do that? All right. I got to break out of the presentation. All right, this is a deep research tool that I've used in the past. I have no idea how this is going to answer. So again, we're all working together. We're doing research study together here. I'm going to paste that into the prompt. 1 second. And you'll see it'll give me a couple of options here. Do you want this to be professional? Do you want it to be academic? Do you want it to be conversational or technical? I'm going to say I want it to be professional. I can tell it how many maximum words per paragraph, but I'm going to leave it right there at 150, and I'm just going to tell it to just start. Now, what it's doing is, you can see as this agent is going out and grabbing information, it is going out onto the internet, it's grabbing that information, it is compiling that information using my prompt as the concept of the research that it's going to do. Once it grabs all that information, it's then going to validate whether or not that information is factual or not. And then it's going to actually look at the way that it's doing the research and whether or not it's producing a product that we think might be a good product. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, it'll be done. Because this is not one of those things like you typically do in ChatGPT where it comes up with the answer automatically. It's going out and not only creating this research for us, it's launching other bots to go grab data so that it can validate the information that it's gathering. Guys, if we were going to do this, if we were going to do a research paper like this, we would have had to have hired somebody like Accenture or a consulting firm like Intermedia, and they would have charged us $10,000, $20,000, right? So we're going to let that run, and then I'm going to go back to the presentation. And again, like, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? So, all right, so that was the prompt. We'll come back to that in just a second, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did at General Informatics when I had that moment when I logged into ChatGPT and said, wow, this is going to really change our industry completely. So we dove in, and we started to test large language models and started using and building our own artificial intelligence platform. One of the first use cases we came up with was my HR director came to me and said, hey, Don, we got 200 employees. I got 2 people in HR. Can I get a head count? I was like, you know what? Like, why don't you tell me what you need that head count for, and let's see if we can utilize our tools in order to do that without actually adding a head count. He says, man, I answer questions all day long about just basic things about general informatics. So what we did, perfect use case, and guys, when we engage with a prospect or with a customer, this is one of the first things that we typically will do. So we basically trained the model to know everything it needed to know about general informatics, our policies, our procedures. We put in our employee handbook. We put in standard operating procedures, everything that we needed to know about GI. And what we did was compare that to the cost of what an intern might have been. And so what we spent over a 2-year period of time was $3,583. That included the time of the individual to train the model and the actual tool set that we used as well. That's how much we spent. And we figured that we were saving roughly $46,000 per year because we didn't have to hire that intern, okay? And what we ended up doing was saving about $85,000. And one of the really cool things about our particular HR bot is that she has a personality. Meet Megan Landry. So when I came to GI, I was hired as a CEO in 2020, and I noticed that this young lady named Megan Landry was getting a lot of questions, and I was getting copied from emails that she was getting sent. And I finally went to my operations director and I said, hey, I haven't met Megan Landry, where is she? And she said, well, Megan Landry doesn't really exist. She's just an email account, and any salespeople who call us that we don't want to talk to, we just send Megan Landry. And I was like, man, that is sneaky but genius. That is genius. So when we decided to create this HR bot, I thought, well, it's got to be Megan Landry, right? It's got to be the same persona that we've been using for all these years. So Megan Landry has her own email address. There are people across the United States that have talked to Megan Landry, and they think she is 100% real. And in fact, we had a new hire come on board, and she was walking around our 3rd floor, and I could tell she was looking for something. So I went up to her. I said, hey, what are you looking for? She goes, I'm trying to... And she, by the way, she talked to 2 of our employees, and she says, I'm looking for Megan Landry. I've been having a conversation with her, and I wanted to meet her. I'm like, oh, I said, the 2 people that you asked, what did they tell you? Like, they said she wasn't here right now. So, like, that's how we treat new hires. But you can see, this is basically a question that was asked, and you can see that it was just a simple question of, hey, what is our PTO policy? And I can ask that question a number of ways. What's our PTO policy? How many days off do I have? I can do it any way, and she figures out what it is that you're truly trying to figure out. And what we can do is we watch all of the questions that get asked, and if we feel like the answer isn't as appropriate as it needs to be, we'll continue to train that model, right? We'll continue to make changes until it gets the answer that we're supposed to get. Basically, I want to say the last count was Megan, over the last 2 years, has fielded 812 questions coming from our internal staff that our HR director would have had to have answered. And they were all incredibly good answers. And what you'll notice down at the bottom, she asks you, if you have further questions and need clarification, feel free to reach out, bon ami. And the reason why she said that is because part of the persona that we created for Megan Landry is that she had to be Cajun French. and so she speaks with a Cajun accent, and a lot of times if you wanted to ask her, you know, where she's from, she'll tell you that she was originally from Thibodaux. And so we have a lot of fun with it, especially like people who didn't grow up around here. They will ask her a number of questions, and you can imagine when we first rolled this out, this was the image that we used when we rolled it out. And I have almost 110 engineers. You can imagine what some of the questions were that she was getting. They weren't all rated PG. I'll just put it that way. But you can imagine, you've probably heard a lot of conversations about energy and how much power AI is truly consuming. And I think that's really important for all of us, because there's a lot of conversations about whether or not the results that we're getting, the value that we're getting, is going to be worth the cost. And just to kind of give you an idea of what the difference in cost is from regular search to an artificial intelligence search, because a lot of people are starting to use AI as a search mechanism as opposed to using something like Google or Bing or some of these other search applications. And look, Google obviously has Gemini, OpenAI is out there, Meta has their own AI, X platform has their own AI, and Google is very concerned about AI taking a lot of their search. That's a multi-billion-dollar business. And what you see here is the difference between how much it costs Google to search the same question on Google search versus doing it inside their Gemini platform. You can see that the cost differential is somewhere between 3 and 10 cents to $15 to $60 in power consumption. So a lot of people ask the question, well, why didn't Google just put their Gemini search right underneath Google search and they could beat everybody? And the reason why that is they know that it would cost them another $255 billion in power alone if they did that. So if you think about where we're headed, artificial intelligence and why you see these data centers that are popping up everywhere, and many of them utilizing their own power grid. In fact, Microsoft bought 3 Mile Island, and they're going to bring it back online just to power the servers that they have for artificial intelligence. So if you wondered if artificial intelligence is here to stay, it is absolutely here to stay. Y'all want to go check on our research paper and see how we're doing? Let's see.
You also have Meta up in North Louisiana.
That's right. You want to talk about that?
No, but yeah, I mean, I know that I have friends that work at Entergy, and I mean, Entergy basically set up, you know, a 2 megawatt power grid in North Louisiana just to service the Meta data warehouse that they have up there. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of like 10,000 homes just for one facility in North Louisiana. It's rural, but it's also some of the cheapest energy in America. And so what we're going to see is, you know, as these data centers now start coming online, they're gonna gravitate towards wherever the most affordable energy is. And so, you know, in Louisiana, we have some of the cheapest energy in the country. And so I think we could reasonably foresee in the next decade that a lot of these data centers are gonna start popping up in, you know, places like this, just because of our energy costs.
All right, so our research paper's not done yet. We're 63%, so it's going out there. And here's what's really cool about agentic AI. Is that I can look at the history. I don't know if you can see this. I know it's pretty small. But I can see what the agent is doing. It's basically saying, I've successfully generated an outline of the article. I'm going to go search and gather relevant information from trusted sources using Google. Search queries, here are the search queries that it's looking at. Check that out. Successfully gathered information, history of Morgan City, history of shipbuilding and fabrication along the Gulf Coast of Morgan City. So you can see it's validating its own information. So when people talk about, hey, artificial intelligence is going to hallucinate and it might not give you proper data, there's now a log that we can track when we're doing deep research like this. All right, so we'll come back to that. All right, we will transition into security. And what I wanted to say a little bit about security and artificial intelligence, there's an overlap on those two technologies in that we utilize a lot of artificial intelligence when we are securing someone's data. The tool sets that we use have artificial intelligence built in. The sad part about that is that artificial intelligence is used widely by threat actors out there as well. And an average threat actor, someone who would try to hack a system and maybe not be successful, has gotten much, much better through the use of artificial intelligence. And we're doing everything that we can to kind of keep up with that as we go. So they do overlap. The things that I wanted to just share with you guys about cybersecurity are really those really important factors as a business leader or business owner that you need to focus in on. The main thing that a threat actor is looking to do is get credentials that has a high degree of access to the data that's inside your corporate network. Guys, a lot of people tell me all the time, why would anybody want my data? Why is my data important? Your data is important to you. If you woke up tomorrow and you can't, invoice your customers, or you don't know what you have due in accounts payable, if you couldn't get that information and somebody had garnered that information and said, we're not going to let you use this until you give me money, you start thinking about giving them money, right? Because you know you're out of business if you don't. So one of the things that they do in order to grab those credentials is do what's called a phishing campaign. Guys, email is incredibly important, and the one thing that's very difficult for us as technologists is to make sure that people are not answering questions from random email phishing attempts where they're asking you for your credentials and people are just putting it in there. I mean, it's one thing that we always stress, having really, really complex passwords, but if you're going to get an email from someone that you haven't validated is someone that's, has the right to get the information that they're asking, it makes it very difficult for us as technologists to keep you guys safe. So here's what we have asked companies that we work with. You should have a policy that says you never give your username and password to anyone over email or over text. And that should be a verbal conversation. And for that matter, chances are there's not a really good reason for anyone to ask you what your username and password is. You should protect that because you never know what they're going to do with that username and password. We tell folks all the time that no one in IT is going to call you and ask you for a username and password. We would just go reset it if we needed to get access to it. So keep that in mind. The other thing is they want access to the end user device. Once they have the device, then they can move laterally in the network until they find either a better username and password that has access to more information, or they find information that is considered valuable. What is valuable information? Any payroll data is incredibly important to business leaders. And look, they don't necessarily have to steal it. They can say, I have it, and I'm going to send an email to everyone in your organization sharing the payroll data unless you pay me. And most business leaders don't want that information out in the entire organization, and the entire organization knowing how much others get paid. That has happened multiple times. I've seen that many, many times. The way that they typically will get in is through VPN or remote desktop. Guys, these are the three most common things that happen in cybersecurity, and there are quite a lot of technology things that we can do to keep that from happening, but it's just as important for users to be vigilant as they're using their machines. I always tell people that most people log in assuming that they are inherently safe. I am asking you to log into your network and assume that you are inherently unsafe. And the threat actors are getting more and more savvy and a little bit more brazen than they ever have been. And they're garnering credentials in manners that most people just don't think about because we're all good people. You know, you've heard the statement that locks are for honest people, because if you wanted to get in somewhere, you're going to get in. I'll share with you a story. Oftentimes we get hired to come in and do what we call pen testing. And sometimes that pen testing includes trying to get creds from an organization to see if we can gain access to data. And a lot of times the only thing I'm given is the company's URL, and I can go do my research from there. I'm going to give you an example of how a threat actor thinks and what I did to gain credentials, and I just ask you not to think poorly of me after I tell you the story. All right, so basically this was a regional hospital. It was on the West Coast. I'm not going to tell you who it was. And they spent almost $3 million a year in their annual security budget alone. And so they wanted to find out if we could penetrate their network. And so the way that I got credentials was, you know, definitely a little bit different than what most people think that I would do. I'm not going to go try to hack a system. I'm not going to go try to gain access to a firewall that I know has been heavily invested in. I always say, I'm not going to go jimmy the window open to get in if the front door is wide open. So I've got to go find that front door. So what I found out was there were 11 executives that reported directly to the CEO, and I decided to target the chief nursing officer only because the chief nursing officer, in my opinion, at that time, probably was going to be the less technically savvy because of how busy she is focusing on her nurses. And so I targeted her. I wasn't sure if I was right, but I targeted her to see if I could get her to give me information that I was looking for. I noticed that they had just won an award, and I did know that their email structure was first dot last name westcoasthospital.com. That's not who it is, obviously, but and she recently attended an event with the risk officer for the hospital. Okay, so guys, I gathered all this over Facebook, over Snapchat, over all those social medias that we just love to give all of our information. I gathered it all through that. I didn't have to go access a system, hack something inside their environment. This is all online. So what I did was I created an account for the risk officer. Let's assume his name was Rick Jones, rick.jones@gmail.com, all right? And this is the email. Oh, sorry. This is the email that I sent to my target. Hey, totally embarrassed that I'm emailing you from a Gmail account, but I don't even want to use my work account right now. IT just called me and said my creds, your creds, Denny and Barb's creds are all on the dark web. I'm collecting everyone's username and passwords so that I can get them to IT. They need to check the dark web now, and they need to reset your current password. Just send me the username in this email thread and text the password to the cyber insurance guy at 322-245-3456. Don't send it in one thread. Now, why did I say that?
Make it illegal.
Because I wanted her to believe that I was trying to keep her safe, right? And I said, not sure who might be watching. I will get your new password to you ASAP. Oh, and sorry I haven't mentioned before now. Thanks for helping me at the blank charity event. Tuesday, watching those kids smile made my week. So she knew I was who I said I was. And the only thing that I got that from was from Facebook. And guess what she did? She sent me her username and her password. And I was able to use her username and password, level up, find other usernames and passwords, and we were able to exfiltrate an enormous amount of data. And they spent $3 million on security. So I tell you this story not because I'm a horrible person. These are the types of attacks that are happening, and they're very targeted. They are watching what you're posting on social media, and guys, they only have to be right once, right? So I would just beg you, pay very close attention to the emails that you're getting, to how you're responding, and if you're posting on social media, what information you're putting out there. All right, we're gonna go.
Tie it together.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so just to tie it together, as we start investing in these AI tools, right, the only way that these AI tools work is by aggregating data, right? You have to have lots of data, you have to be able to put it together, and you have to be able to train these models. Well, as companies are now aggregating more and more data, and they're trying to figure out ways to use these models, that's just widening their attack, right? That's the more data you have on your system, the more vectors of attack cyber criminals will have, right? So what we've seen is that as companies start to invest in these AI tools, they start cutting corners, right? So, all right, we need more hard drives so that we can have more data, so we can train more models, and then you end up in a situation where you would now have all this data that hasn't been protected properly, and now you're just, widening your risk exposure, right? So it's important that these things kind of happen in tandem, and that's why we present it together. AI and cybersecurity are kind of tied together, and it's very, very important that as we try to invest in these things, we keep in mind that we need to stay secure. Right, that's kind of the whole vision behind it. And a lot of y'all might think we don't have a ton of data to train AI models. Well, you do. You just have to think creatively about what data you have, right? And that's sort of the thought process you have to be thinking about. If you're going to start incorporating AI, you have to think about how you're going to keep it secure at the same time.
All right, so we are probably not going to finish the report generation while we're here today, but I am going to scroll through and let you see some of the information that it's gathering. It's gathering images, it's giving the descriptions of the infographic, creating content for that subsection, AI applications in key sectors under the role of AI in economic diversification, generating content for subsection AI applications in key sectors. You can see that it's continuing to go do its work, validate that work, talk a little bit about this infographic illustrating the adoption levels of AI in businesses. And it's going through its finalization, and we'll be putting that report together. What I will tell you is that let me go back to our presentation. If you email one of us and you would like to get a copy of that report, we will be happy to send you guys a copy of that report to see, hey, A, did it do a good job? B, is deep research something that we can utilize within our own organization as we try to go gather information? And if you want more information about how to do that, we can help you with that as well. Any idea, like I said, that would cost about $20,000 based on the quality of the reports that I've seen come out of these systems. That report will cost us $10. So you can imagine the difference between what access we have now to research because of AI and where this is all headed. All right, we left a little bit of time for questions. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
You said that cost $10.
$10.
Who do you pay?
Say again.
Who does it cost $10?
Okay, so basically there's a clearinghouse, obviously, that gathers all of that data. And what we do is we buy a large chunk of that platform. And so it's a credit system. And then that will cost me 1 credit, which is roughly $10.
There's also energy that goes into the cost of it as well, right? So the power needed in order to generate all this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So if I were to get that email right there, the first thing I would do is delete.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
And then I would delete that from a delete trail, right?
Absolutely.
All right, good
Yes.
news.
You also want to let the IT provider, your in-house IT department know that you got the email. Definitely don't forward them the email, right? Because it's like you're spreading a virus, right? Our recommendation, take a screenshot, send a screenshot, So that way you don't want it, that happens all the time. Like, hey, I got this phishing email, let me send it to to the IT department, then you're just kind of spreading something that other people could potentially click on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. If you think about when, and sadly I was around when email was invented. When email was invented, it was really not meant to do what we use email for today, right? We use it as the single most important form of communication between people and between organizations. And really, it's not a great methodology to communicate in that manner. And it's obviously being used in very nefarious ways to gain access to your data. My hard and fast rule is if I don't know where the email comes from and there's an attachment, I'm deleting it. And guys, I miss important stuff. I mean, as a CEO of a company, there are a lot of people doing things and I have to sign them. If they don't tell me it's being sent to me, I'm not double clicking on it. I'm not gonna run the risk of inviting someone into our organization. Typically speaking, when you click on an attachment, it has the opportunity to run an executable file and basically harvest information out of your system. So I always look at that as, when you drive through a rough neighborhood, you roll up the windows and you lock the doors. When you're on your computer, you're in a rough neighborhood. And so roll up the windows and lock the doors.
Yeah. And, we like to think of it in terms of, we all exist on a security convenience spectrum, right? Typically, the more convenient something is, the less secure it is. The more secure, the less convenient, right? Every business has decisions to make, If you don't want to have to reset your password every, few weeks, that's fine. It's going to be more convenient for you to get in. It's also less secure, right? We all kind of fall somewhere on that spectrum. And it's up to us as business leaders to figure out what is our risk appetite within our organization, right? We all kind of have to make those decisions. We use an advanced email filtering tool. Think of it like a dial, right? You can turn it up and turn it down based on, where you kind of fall on that spectrum. But at the end of the day, the value of your data typically is gonna dictate what your risk appetite is. And, I think we all value our data quite a bit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, AI is mainly an accumulation of information that's out there that people develop some type of programs to go get the information. And everyone in here today that has had a color of mind is a resource.
Yes.
And have been working on their own AI system through their own brain system. My question is, though, is that looking at what can be done through AI, and it's getting faster and faster and more elaborate every day, how long is it going to take with all the new robotics and mechanisms and things in place, with the drones and all the things that you need to get information from, is it going to take before all of us become Megan Landers? Because sooner or later we could all be replaced by.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a demo yesterday of a gentleman who has an agent that goes out and schedules his appointment for him. And his agent called another person, and their agent picked up, and the two agents communicated and put something on their schedules. And I thought, okay, that's a little bit scary, where two machines had a conversation and got two humans together. So you're right. We are quickly moving in that direction, and it's a dynamic that, regardless of what we, the gray-haired folks, believe, it's happening. It's happening already today, and we'll continue to see that. One of the things that you mentioned, like, there's a lot of institutional knowledge, in my organization, even. Because I've been in the industry for almost 35 years. So there are things that I know about IT that Connor doesn't know, right? Because he hasn't experienced it yet. One of the use cases we did for a client, there was a CEO. He had worked at this company for almost 50 years. He was retiring, and it just so happens that they collected a lot of information over the years of the things that he would document as institutional knowledge. But you can imagine when that guy walked down the hallway, people would ask him, "Hey man, what about this? What about this?" And I won't say it's a local company, and their idea was, we want to take all of the information that he has and put it into that model, so that if we need to ask questions, we can ask him. So he retired in that month, that it was in December, he retired. We rolled it out in January, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you, there were people like tearing up because they're like, we will have access to him for the rest of our lives. And it's just a good example of sometimes that's a really cool thing to have, even though maybe it's a little bit scary and weird.
I mean, you're never going to get everything because there's a lot of answers out there that people have in their head that you can't get control of unless they put it out on the web.
Yeah.
That's right.
And like you say, they retired and died.
Yeah, and to answer, I think a little bit more tactically the question. So I'm an attorney. A lot of my friends are lawyers, right? And as sort of the tech attorney type person, a lot of my friends hit me up with these questions, asking, hey, should we be worried about our jobs? And my, just sort of off the cuff answer a lot of times is, AI is not going to replace lawyers. It's going to replace lawyers who don't use it. Right? It's like using a calculator. It's a tool. You're going to have to use these tools, or you're going to be outcompeted by the people who choose to use it whenever you don't. Right? So it's almost like a force multiplier. It gives you the ability to do things that other people that you might see as your competition wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Well, I want to be a Megan Land.
Yeah, I like that. Any other questions?
You don't look like that.
Hey guys, guess what? Our article is ready. You want to check it out? Leveraging AI for economic resilience in Morgan City, Louisiana. In 2023, Morgan City, Louisiana recorded a 12% decline in oil service employment, a stark reminder of the region's economic vulnerability, yet this same city, once the birthplace of offshore drilling innovation with the launch of the submersible drilling rig Mr. Charlie in 1954, now stands at the precipice of another transformation. So you can see historical significance of the oil and gas industry, economic challenges and vulnerabilities, the role of AI in economic diversification, AI applications in key sectors, assessing readiness for AI adoption, strategies for AI integration in local businesses, cost-effective implementation, workforce development, generative AI reshaping the future, partnerships with educational institutions, creating AI career pathways. Developing AI career pathways in Morgan City requires a nuanced approach that bridges advanced technology. So it's not going to just talk about it, it's going to tell us how to do it. Fostering an AI-friendly environment. Public-private partnerships and policy support. Infrastructure and innovation ecosystem. Learning from other small cities. That's pretty impressive for...
When you go do that research, years ago, we did a little term paper, something we had to document where we got the information.
Yes.
Because it was their information.
Yes.
Does this thing do that?
Yes. It will give us basically every article that it pulled.
Is it a legal issue?
Is it a legal issue?
That you taking that information from somewhere that somebody, out of somebody's system?
Yeah.
He's a lawyer.
It is not a legal issue to use.
Yes.
It's not a legal issue to use.
Free use.
It could be a legal issue to sell.
Yes.
Well, that's my point.
Right.
You're doing this to make money from somebody.
It could be a legal issue to sell. Keep in mind, it's pulling public information. Public information. So information on the internet that's noted for public use. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have every,
So if I put something on the internet that I'm just sending something to my dog or something, it becomes public just because I use the internet?
If it's on Facebook,
Yeah.
and you just put it on Facebook, that's now the open internet. It's sort of like putting it on a billboard and driving down the highway. You're like, hey, I saw that on the billboard. I'm going to talk about it now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You have the structure so that it can research from private libraries, journal articles, Westlaw, Access, those kinds of things that aren't considered public? Or are you limited to only things that are available publicly with no charge?
Free use.
Yeah, so this particular model, it's public. Anything that would be at no charge. There are models that we can build that would utilize whatever database that we can point to and have access to.
You pay for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. It can then go into the Wall Street Journal and pull articles that it's published in the past and compile it into the research that's being done. That's what McKinsey does. If you hire McKinsey to go, publish this kind of, if you hire McKinsey to go do that, they're going to do the same thing, right?
Like a subscription you have to some information that
Exactly.
you use and sell.
Exactly.
Okay.
Seriously, thank y'all so much. A lot of y'all know that I probably had a kid like 2 weeks ago, and it's been kind of crazy getting to this point. But this is a special community, and I love y'all, and I love what Morgan City is and what it can become. So hopefully there's some takeaways here, and I'd love to work with some of y'all in the future. So thanks, Don.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much.
Rod,
Yes.
can you get that sent out to everybody, that article?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you get it to Roger, and Roger, you send it to everybody? I can send it to you. Well, yeah. Everybody. I would like people to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation. Now, on June the 9th will be our next meeting. We'll have Josh Jones of Hancock Whitney, and they'll be, and his team, they'll be giving a presentation on the 2025 Economic Insights. That's June the 9th. Thank you very much, and be careful going home, going back to work.
That was awesome.